Dear friends, life is inherently a long journey where each person experiences joy, sorrow, and challenges. However, what matters most is not what happens to us, but how we embrace and face it. If we can maintain a grateful mindset, find contentment, and cherish what we have, every scene before us will become beautiful, and every moment in life will be filled with meaning. These stories not only carry profound lessons, but also serve as a guiding compass to awaken our souls, find peace amidst the chaos of life, and live freely and serenely. Let us embark on this fascinating journey of reflection together. The first story, Contentment Brings Joy, a life free of complaints leads to happiness. One day, as the Buddha was preaching at Truklam Monastery on the outskirts of Rajagaha, loud noises erupted outside. The Buddha said to Ananda, "Go outside and see what is causing this commotion." Ananda went out and saw an elderly man with a bent back, leaning on a cane, pleading earnestly with the gatekeeper to let him meet the Buddha. The old man said, "Even if I can only see him from afar, I would feel fulfilled." The gatekeeper refused, saying, "The Buddha is giving a sermon. You're old and hard of hearing, and I'm afraid you won't understand his teachings. Your presence now might disrupt everyone." The old man insisted, "I am already old, and if I don't get to see the Buddha today, I may not have another chance. Please, just let me in this once." Hearing this, Ananda reported to the Buddha, who compassionately said, "Quickly, bring the old man in." Ananda respectfully helped the old man approach the Buddha. Overwhelmed with joy upon seeing him, the old man wept tears of happiness and repeatedly bowed in reverence. The Buddha asked, "Old man, how old are you this year?" The old man, trembling, raised 2 fingers and replied, 100 years old. The Buddha gently asked, "At your advanced age, why have you sought me today?" The old man, choked with emotion, said, "I've lived a life of hardship, enduring endless suffering. I just want to be liberated. Please tell me, why am I so poor and miserable?" The Buddha replied, "Everything is due to cause and effect. In your past life, you were wealthy but miserly, unwilling to help others. Thus, in this life, though you have longevity, you suffer poverty and hardship." Hearing this, the old man felt deeply ashamed. "So, in my past life, I was greedy and stingy, which led to this karmic retribution. Please accept me as your disciple so I can repent and cultivate." The Buddha smiled and said, "Cultivation is not limited by age. The young can practice, and so can the old. Starting today, vow to abandon greed and stinginess, cultivate generosity, and work hard to create good karma." The old man expressed his gratitude and promised to follow the teachings. The Buddha accepted him as a disciple. People often suffer due to greed, anger, and ignorance. If we can live simply and be content, life becomes lighter. Each day, all we need is a few bowls of rice, warm clothing, and a place to rest. Why, then, should we be consumed by greed and competition? Those who do good and live for others often don't feel burdened. Instead, they find joy in helping others and performing meaningful acts. A grateful heart helps you appreciate what you have. Live this way, and you'll find your life to be fulfilling and complete. The second story, Where is the Temple of the Soul? It was Tan's first pilgrimage with her mother-in-law to offer incense. To reach the temple on the mountain summit, the two had to travel over 10 miles of rugged trails, take a motorized rickshaw to town, and then ride a bus for another 2 hours to the mountain's base. Tan's mother-in-law insisted on taking a detour through the mountains, stopping at small temples and shrines along the way to pray and make offerings with wholehearted devotion. Tan quietly followed, observing her mother-in-law's every action without complaint. She understood that in her younger days, her mother-in-law had dreamed of becoming a nun. However, family responsibilities and the care of her young children had led her to set that dream aside. For her mother-in-law, temples were not only places of worship, but also sanctuaries for her deepest aspirations and sacred desires. When they finally reached the mountain summit and met the great abbot, Tan's mother-in-law was overjoyed. They enthusiastically discussed the temple as it had been over a decade ago, reminiscing about the challenges of its construction and maintenance. The two elderly individuals marveled at the hardships they had endured, while Tan took the opportunity to explore the temple grounds. This temple, though not famous, exuded a solemn and serene beauty. Ancient trees, hundreds of years old, provided cool shade over the red-tiled roofs. Despite the scorching summer heat, the atmosphere here remained refreshingly cool and tranquil. After a vegetarian meal, Tan's mother-in-law did not retire to the guest room to rest. Instead, she requested to go to the Buddha Hall to recite scriptures. The small Buddha Hall housed only a statue of Amitabha Buddha, with a few neatly placed meditation cushions on the floor. Her mother-in-law sat on a cushion and wholeheartedly recited the sutras, a sight that deeply moved Tan. Watching her mother-in-law chant, Tan suddenly recalled her visit to Phúc Minh Temple the previous year. There, she had been curious and asked to enter the meditation hall. The monks were offering incense in profound silence, creating a space that was both still and dynamic, as if unlocking wisdom in a unique way. The next morning, as the two left the grand temple, Tan's mother-in-law stopped at a small roadside shrine dedicated to Guan Yin to light an incense stick. Tan curiously asked, "Mother, why do you endure such a long and arduous journey to pray? Wouldn't it be easier to bring a Buddha statue home? We could set up a Buddha hall for you." Her mother-in-law smiled gently and shook her head. "No need. The Buddha hall has long been built." Surprised, Tan asked, "Where is this Buddha hall, Mother? I've never seen it." Her mother-in-law slowly pointed to her heart and said, "Here. The Buddha hall in my heart was built years ago. Every day, I recite sutras and pray there." Those words awakened something profound in Tan. How could someone who couldn't read utter such insightful words? What in this world could be more real and beautiful than a Buddha hall within one's soul? So many people toil and yearn for a savior to eliminate their suffering, yet they forget that true peace must come from within. The Buddha once taught that all external seeking ultimately leads back to the stillness within one's own heart. When the heart is awakened, wisdom flourishes, and the light of happiness radiates everywhere. The third story, mastering yourself, strong winds cannot move mountains. If someone says hurtful, critical, or humiliating words to you, how would you react? Would you become angry, retaliate with harsh words, suppress your rage, or calmly let it go? The following story about the Buddha offers a profound lesson on maintaining composure and mastering oneself. One day, as the Buddha was traveling to share his teachings, he passed through a village. Suddenly, a group of people approached and began to hurl disrespectful and insulting words at him. Their comments were harsh and offensive. The Buddha, however, listened silently without showing any emotion. When they finished speaking, he calmly said, "Thank you for seeking me out. However, I have urgent matters to attend to. The people in the next village are waiting for me. Tomorrow, once my work is done, I will have time to talk. If you still have things to say, we can meet again then." The group was astonished and couldn't believe what they had heard. One of them asked, "Didn't you hear what we said? We insulted you, yet you showed no reaction." The Buddha smiled and replied, "If you wanted me to react, you are too late. You would have had to meet me 10 years ago when I was still easily affected. Over the past decade, I have refused to let others control my emotions. I am no longer a slave to the actions or words of others. Now, I am the master of myself. I focus only on what I need to do, rather than being drawn into the reactions of others. Indeed, in life, you may encounter harsh words or unfavorable situations. However, your reaction to these reflects your inner self. Some people are like grass swaying in the wind. They bend in whichever direction the wind blows. They are easily influenced by external circumstances and unable to master themselves. When insulted or faced with conflict, they immediately retaliate, allowing others' actions to dictate their emotions, unwittingly becoming slaves to those who provoke them. But to remain unmoved by external factors and steadfast in adversity requires a long process of self-cultivation. By practicing tolerance, patience, kindness, and positive thinking, you can achieve this state. When you do, your mind will no longer be like grass bending to the wind, but like a mountain standing firm. No matter how strong the winds may blow, you will remain unwavering and unshaken. The fourth story, a dialogue between a non-believer and a monk. A thought-provoking question: if someone believes in the Buddha but he does not exist, what will they lose? Conversely, if the Buddha does exist, yet someone defames him, what will they lose? King Milinda, who did not believe in Buddhism, once asked a monk, "The Buddhist scriptures teach that a sinful person, no matter how grave their wrongdoings, can attain nirvana if they wholeheartedly chant the Buddha's name before their death. On the other hand, someone who kills just once will fall into hell. These teachings are hard for me to believe. Please explain." The monk calmly responded with a question: "Your Majesty, if a small stone is placed on water, will it float or sink?" The king answered, "Of course, it will sink." The monk then asked, "What if a large stone is placed on a boat? Will it sink?" The king replied, "It will not sink because the boat will support it." The monk smiled and explained, "Your Majesty, the large stone on the boat is like a sinful person who has faith in the Buddha. The Buddha's teachings are like the boat, supporting them and preventing them from sinking. Meanwhile, the small stone with no support sinks immediately, like a sinful person who does not believe in the Buddha's teachings and inevitably falls into hell. Is this so hard to believe?" Hearing this, King Milinda reflected deeply and said, "The power of the Buddha's teachings is truly remarkable and beyond imagination. Buddhism teaches people to live kindly, sincerely, and compassionately. Those who have faith in the Buddha often carry his teachings in their hearts. They live harmoniously and benevolently, believing in the law of cause and effect, avoiding evil, and striving for goodness. In contrast, those who do not believe in Buddhism or the principle of karmic retribution often succumb to greed and are willing to do anything for personal gain. In doing so, they lose their sense of direction and the true meaning of life." The writer Bernard Shaw once said, "Do not scorn what you do not understand, or you will bring danger upon yourself." In a world without proper faith, the boundary between good and evil, right and wrong, blurs. People are easily swayed by ambition and lose sincerity, kindness, and patience. Conversely, proper faith is fertile ground for nurturing the seeds of goodness in the soul. Faith not only guides us to live righteously, but also brings happiness, peace, and fulfillment to life. Believing in the Buddha is not just about believing in his existence, but also in the humane and virtuous values that Buddhism embodies. A life guided by proper faith does not cost us anything. On the contrary, it helps us live more joyfully, peacefully, and successfully. The fifth story, the Buddha's dialogue with a theater troupe leader about artistic performance. Once, while the Buddha Shakyamuni was traveling and teaching in the kingdom of Magadha, he stayed at the Trukvingjialan monastery, north of Rajagahat. One day, a renowned theater troupe leader came to pay his respects and asked the Buddha, "Lord Buddha, I have often heard elders in the performing arts say that if artists bring joy to others, making them laugh and feel delighted, they will be reborn in the heavens after death. Is this belief true? The Buddha gently replied, Troop leader, let us not discuss this matter. You should not ask me about it. Undeterred, the troop leader asked a second time and then a third. Finally, the Buddha calmly said, Very well, let me ask you some questions. Answer me truthfully based on what you know. In the past, before there were enlightened beings in this world, people were bound by greed, hatred, and delusion. Performances of song, dance, and drama often revolved around these themes to captivate audiences. When audiences watched these performances and laughed heartily, didn't their greed, hatred, and delusion increase, binding them even tighter? The troop leader reflected and answered, That is indeed true, Lord Buddha. The Buddha elaborated, This is like someone whose hands are tightly bound behind their back with thorny vines. If another person pours water on the vines will absorb the water, swell, and tighten further, causing more pain. Beings already bound by greed, hatred, and delusion, if further stirred by performances of song and dance, would only suffer more. Isn't that so? The troop leader nodded in agreement. What the Buddha says is reasonable. The Buddha continued, Therefore, the belief that artists who bring joy to others will be reborn in the heavens is a false and mistaken view. Those who cling to such delusions, after death, are more likely to fall into hell or be reborn as animals. How could they ascend to the heavens? Hearing these profound teachings, the troop leader immediately understood, took refuge in the Buddha, and became his disciple. It is said that he later practiced diligently and attained the state of an arahant. This story emphasizes that art is not merely a means of entertainment, but also carries a moral responsibility to guide and uplift humanity, helping them escape suffering. If art is used to promote noble values, such as praising the Buddha and the beauty of truth or awakening people to avoid wrongdoing, it becomes a great virtue and accrues immeasurable merit. Conversely, if art is exploited to arouse desire and reinforce greed, hatred, and delusion, it only corrupts morality and leads people toward suffering. Thus, true artists must deeply reflect on the values and meanings they are conveying, striving to bring real benefits to society through their work. The sixth story, for things in life that even the Buddha cannot arrange. One day, the Buddha Shakyamuni and his disciples traveled to a small countryside village. That morning, the sunlight was warm and bright, birds sang melodiously, and a gentle fragrance filled the air. The Buddha and his disciples stopped by a riverbank, sitting on the lush green grass, admiring the vitality of nature. Suddenly, a disciple asked, Lord Buddha, you possess infinite powers and boundless compassion. Why, then, do so many beings in the world still suffer so greatly? The Buddha looked at the disciple with a compassionate smile and gently said, No matter how great my powers are, there are 4 things that cannot be accomplished. Hearing this, the disciples were curious and asked in unison, Lord Buddha, what are these things? The Buddha slowly explained. Karma cannot be altered. Each person reaps what they sow. No one can bear the karmic consequences of another. Wisdom cannot be given. To gain wisdom, each person must learn, reflect, and practice on their own. The Dharma cannot be fully expressed. It can only be understood through individual enlightenment and cannot be entirely conveyed through words. Those without connection cannot be guided. If someone lacks the karmic connection, they will not hear my teachings, no matter how much effort I make. Hearing this, the disciples were enlightened. One of them exclaimed, Truly, there are many things in life that cannot be forced. Everything depends on karmic connections. The Buddha added, Exactly. When the connection is insufficient, you cannot meet. When destiny is absent, nothing can be compelled. Life is but a fleeting dream, and when the dream ends, all illusions vanish. Human existence is no more than an illusory stage. Meetings between people are the result of connections formed over countless past lifetimes. Karmic connections cannot be summoned at will, they cannot be forced. Only when you are sincere, kind-hearted, and blessed with good fortune will positive connections naturally come to you. Just like a heavy rain, no matter how much it pours, a tree without roots cannot absorb the water. The gates of the Buddha's teachings are wide open, but those without the right connection cannot be guided. This story emphasizes that in life, there are things we cannot force. Everything depends on karmic connections and personal effort. We cannot rely on others to act on our behalf, nor can we compel what does not belong to us. Only by understanding and accepting the law of karma, cultivating wisdom, and maintaining a kind heart can we live peacefully and attract positive connections into our lives. The seventh story, how to live peacefully, letting go of worries. Life is like a multicolored painting, filled with all kinds of emotions, joy, anger, love, and sorrow. No one spends their entire life in happiness, nor does anyone remain forever in suffering. Along this journey, we all seek peace and wish to cast off worries and burdens. One day, a man, overwhelmed by suffering and troubles in his life, came to the Buddha for guidance. He asked, "Lord Buddha, why is my life filled with so much unhappiness? Why do I always live in anxiety and worry?" The Buddha compassionately smiled and replied, "To live peacefully and without worries, there is only one way: learn to let go." The man, still unsatisfied with the answer, asked again, "Lord Buddha, there are millions of people in this world, and that means millions of troubles. But your solution is only one. Isn't that overly simplistic?" The Buddha calmly asked, "At night, when you sleep, do you often dream?" The man replied, "Yes, I dream a lot." The Buddha continued, "Are those dreams the same each time?" The man shook his head, "Of course not." The Buddha smiled and asked, "Do you also have nightmares often?" The man lowered his head and said, "Yes, I frequently have nightmares." Looking straight at him, the Buddha said, "You have slept thousands of times and had thousands of dreams, including countless nightmares. Yet, there is only one way to escape a nightmare: wake up." The man felt enlightened, as if a stream of wisdom had flowed into his mind. He clasped his hands together, bowed deeply, and said no more. Life's troubles are like nightmares. Regardless of their source, they all share the same nature. They are ties created by the mind. And the only way to break free is to let go. Let go of suffering, and you will find peace. Let go of justifications, and the light of wisdom will shine. Let go of hatred, and you will find liberation. Be content, and you will discover joy. Do not let the past haunt you or let the future bind you. Live fully in the present. To escape a nightmare, simply wake up. To free yourself from misery, simply let go. The eighth story, Buddha nature is like a lamp, just light it. One pitch-dark night, an ascetic monk was wandering in search of the Buddha. He arrived at a deserted village where the roads were dark and only a few villagers were passing by. As he ventured deeper into a narrow alley, he noticed a faint yellow light from a distant lamp slowly approaching. Suddenly, someone shouted, "The blind man is coming." Startled, the monk turned to a nearby villager and asked, "Is the person carrying the lantern truly blind?" The villager replied, "Yes, he has been blind since birth." This puzzled the monk deeply. A flurry of questions raced through his mind. A person who doesn't know day from night, who cannot see mountains or flowing water, who has no concept of light, why would he carry a lantern? Isn't this a joke? The light grew closer, and finally, the blind man stopped right in front of the monk. Curious, the monk asked, "Good sir, are you truly blind?" The blind man replied, "Yes, since birth, my eyes have only ever seen darkness." The monk continued, "If you can't see anything, why carry a lantern?" The blind man calmly answered, "It is nighttime, isn't it? I've been told that in the dark, no one can see, just like me. So, I light this lantern." The monk nodded, saying, "Ah, so you light it to illuminate the path for others." But the blind man shook his head and said, "No, I do it for myself." Surprised, the monk asked, "For yourself? But you cannot see the light from this lantern." The blind man slowly explained, "Have you ever walked in the dark and been bumped into by others?" The monk thought for a moment and replied, "Yes, just earlier, 2 people accidentally bumped into me." The blind man chuckled softly. "I, on the other hand, have never been bumped into. Even though I can't see, when I carry this lantern, others can see me. That's why they avoid bumping into me." Hearing this, the ascetic monk looked up to the sky and sighed, "I've traveled far and wide searching for the Buddha, only to realize that the Buddha has been beside me all along. Buddha nature is like a lamp. As long as we light it, even if we cannot see the Buddha will see us. Buddha nature is like a lamp. When you ignite compassion and wisdom within your soul, the darkness of life begins to fade." The lantern carried by the blind man symbolizes self-illumination. Though he cannot see its light, the lamp allows others to see him. This is a lesson about spreading light to the world. When we bring light to others, we also illuminate our own path. For yourself and for others, light the lamp of your life. In the vast darkness of existence, that lamp becomes the beacon of peace and truth. The 9th story, why did the nun's devotion to Buddhism end in futility? Once, there was a nun who sincerely practiced Buddhism, seeking liberation. She commissioned a skilled carpenter to carve a small Buddha statue for her, just about the size of a hand, made of gilded wood and exquisitely crafted. She cherished the statue deeply, carrying it with her wherever she went. Each day, she would light incense and make offerings to her Buddha statue. One day, during her travels, the nun stopped at a small rural temple. The temple housed many large Buddha statues, each with its own altar. Seeing her small Buddha statue, she felt uneasy. Since she was a guest at the temple, she could not set up a separate altar for her statue, so she placed it on the communal altar with the temple's larger statues. However, she was constantly worried that the incense smoke she offered might not reach her statue because the larger statues might take it all. To address her concern, she fashioned a small funnel out of paper and a plastic tube to direct the incense smoke straight to her Buddha statue. With this, she felt reassured and satisfied. Although the nun spent her life practicing asceticism, traveling tirelessly, and showing steadfast devotion, she misunderstood the essence of Buddhism. The Buddha resides in one's heart, but she sought him externally. Instead of cultivating her inner self, she focused solely on caring for her statue. This effort was as futile as a cicada spinning sand, a lot of work for no meaningful result. In her practice, the nun even differentiated between her Buddha and the temple's Buddha, a form of attachment that contradicted Buddhist teachings. Buddhism teaches cultivating boundless compassion and selflessness, but the nun's clinging and distinctions created obstacles on her spiritual path. True Buddhist practice is not about building grand temples, lighting copious incense, or adhering to external rituals. The Buddha Shakyamuni renounced his palace, family, and worldly riches to seek the truth. He attained enlightenment by letting go of attachments, turning inward, keeping a pure heart, and overcoming desires. Similarly, King Tran Nan Tong abandoned his throne to become a true monk, achieving spiritual mastery. On the other hand, lay practitioner Vimalakirti, though not ordained, maintained a tranquil heart, free from attachment to wealth or power, and attained the state of a bodhisattva. Even Huineng, a poor woodcutter, found enlightenment by keeping his mind pure and free from desires. External acts like building temples, casting statues, or giving alms hold no true merit if unaccompanied by inner cultivation. As Bodhidharma once said to Emperor Wu of Liang, genuine merit does not lie in external deeds, but in maintaining a pure mind, overcoming desires, and letting go of attachments. Although the nun was sincere, her focus on worshipping the statue diverted her from the true path of inner cultivation. Buddhism teaches that seeking externally, no matter how great the effort, is futile. Genuine practice lies in turning inward, purifying the mind, cultivating compassion, and releasing attachments. The nun's story serves as a profound reminder to all practitioners: Buddhism is not about rituals or forms, but about inner transformation. Pouring effort into external matters while neglecting the heart leads only to wasted toil. The 10th story, a simple method to change your fate taught by the Buddha. Some people believe that fate is predetermined and unchangeable. As a result, they surrender to life's twists and turns. In truth, the key to changing fate lies in your own hands. When you learn to be grateful and cherish life, miracles can happen. Long ago, when the Buddha was still alive, there was an old man with 5 children. Although he had raised them to adulthood, none of them took care of him in his old age. With no other choice, the old man resorted to begging. His life was filled with hardship and resentment, leaving him feeling powerless against his fate. One day, he encountered the Buddha and asked, "Lord Buddha, how can I change my destiny?" The Buddha calmly replied, "Do you know what gratitude is?" The old man hesitated and said, "I do not know. Please teach me." The Buddha smiled, pointed to the walking stick in the man's hand, and asked, "Do you feel grateful for this stick?" The old man responded, "Yes, I am very grateful for it. It helps me ward off stray dogs, supports me when I climb up or down slopes, and when I am tired, I use it as a pillow to sleep. It is my reliable companion." Pleased, the Buddha said, "Good. From now on, each day, give thanks to this stick and everything around you. If you do this long enough, your fate will change." From that day forward, the old man followed the Buddha's advice. He not only expressed gratitude for the stick, but also thanked those who helped him and even the hardships and misfortunes in his life. His gratitude dissolved his resentment, replacing it with peace and happiness. Years passed, and the old man became someone full of gratitude. One day, he attended a sermon by the Buddha. The Buddha noticed the transformation in him and told the gathering, "Today, we have someone who has attained the practice of gratitude samadhi. Let us hear his story." During the talk, the old man shared his journey. Unexpectedly, his 5 children were also present. Hearing their father say he had even been grateful for a stick, they felt both ashamed and deeply moved. They all vied to take care of their father, saying, "Father, come live with me. We will take care of you." The Buddha smiled, looked at the old man, and said, "Your fate has changed. A person with gratitude gains everything, while one without gratitude loses it all." Buddhist teachings emphasize that repaying kindness leads to liberation, whereas harboring resentment only deepens suffering. Be thankful for everything in life, whether good or bad. Only when we cherish and express gratitude does life become truly meaningful. As a noodle shop owner once told a young woman, "I gave you one bowl of noodles, and you were so touched. Your mother has cared for you for 20 years, shouldn't you thank her?" These words awakened the young woman to her mother's boundless love, something she had always taken for granted. She immediately returned home to fully appreciate her mother's warmth and care. Life continually offers us precious gifts, yet we often fail to recognize them or see them as merely ordinary. A grateful heart opens magical doors, bringing light and happiness into our lives. Be thankful for the moon that lights up the night, but don't forget the sun that brightens the day. Be thankful for those who love us, and also for those who have hurt us. For gratitude is the path to peace and the key to transforming our fate. The 11th story, the Demon King's Curse after his defeat by the Buddha. Long ago, before the Buddha Shakyamuni attained enlightenment, the world was under the rule of the Demon King. When the Buddha achieved awakening and discovered the path to liberation, the Demon King did everything in his power to stop him. The spread of the Buddha's pure meditative teachings would threaten the Demon King's influence, as it would deprive him of the followers who worshipped, prayed to, and served him. The Demon King devised countless schemes to disrupt the Buddha but ultimately failed. This was because the Buddha wielded the bow of pure meditation and the sword of Prajnaparamita wisdom to counter him. The Buddha declared, "Your actions serve only to trap beings in the cycle of samsara to serve you, but I have seen through it all." Humiliated by the Buddha's words, the Demon King fled, but not before uttering a curse. "Gautama, today I have lost because you are here. But after you enter nirvana, your disciples, whether great or small, will fall under my control. You will see, they will stray from your teachings. Those who dare to rewrite the teachings of the pure meditative path will be my enemies, and I will stop them at all costs. I will manipulate those in power within your religious order to suppress them. In the future, very few will truly understand your pure meditative teachings, but the number of people who come to worship, pray, and make offerings will be countless. I will also incite people to misuse your teachings for deception and profit." The Demon King ended his curse with a long, chilling laugh that echoed through the air. Hearing this, the Buddha addressed his disciples. "Monks, nuns, laymen, and laywomen, remember the Demon King's curse. To follow the true teachings of the pure meditative path, you must remain steadfast in meditation, resisting the temptations of fame, wealth, or worldly desires. You must use the sword of Prajnaparamita wisdom to discern truth from falsehood, righteousness from deceit, and good from evil. Do not follow the crowd or seek recognition, but stay firmly rooted in the teachings." The Buddha often taught that spiritual practice involves not only overcoming internal struggles, but also enduring countless external challenges. This theme is vividly portrayed in the journey of the monk Xuanzang and his disciples in their quest to obtain the Buddhist scriptures. Only by overcoming all obstacles can a practitioner achieve true enlightenment. The story of the Demon King's defeat by the bow of pure meditation and the sword of wisdom serves as a reminder for practitioners to maintain unwavering focus, resist the lure of worldly gains and emotions, and use wisdom to uncover falsehoods and distinguish good from evil. Even in modern times, the Demon King's curse persists. On holidays and festivals, countless people visit temples to worship and make offerings, yet few truly understand the teachings of the pure meditative path. Many exploit the name of Buddhism for personal gain, just as the Demon King foretold. Buddhism does not teach people to build grand temples, burn offerings, or make superficial prayers. It teaches that true practice lies in maintaining a pure heart, meditating in stillness, and using wisdom to apply the Dharma in life. The 12th story, the gem at the bottom of the well. Long ago, a young man heard the legend of a priceless gem hidden at the bottom of a deep well in the forest. Whoever possessed the gem would gain lifelong wisdom and happiness. Determined to find the gem, the young man set out on his journey. After days of trekking through forests and streams, he finally found the well. However, the water in the well was very deep and cold, and the gem lay buried beneath a thick layer of mud at the bottom. A passerby advised him, "To retrieve the gem, you must patiently remove all the water from the well. But remember, do not let any water fall back in, or the mud will cover the gem again." The young man began his task. Day after day, he used a small bucket to remove water, gradually lowering the water level in the well. But when only a little water remained, exhaustion overtook him. Losing focus, he accidentally dropped the bucket back into the well. The muddy water churned, and the gem was once again hidden under a layer of murky water. Frustrated, he lamented, "I was so close. Why did I fail?" Disheartened, he gave up and walked away empty-handed. Sometime later, a young woman came to the well, also searching for the gem. She patiently scooped out bucket after bucket of water, taking care not to let any spill back into the well. She worked steadily, without rushing, even as time passed and her strength waned. As the water level dropped, she noticed the mud at the bottom of the well beginning to settle. Instead of acting hastily, she waited for the mud to clear. Finally, the precious gem emerged, glistening under the sunlight. Overjoyed, she retrieved the gem and took it home. Both the young man and the young woman made similar efforts, but the difference lay in patience and caution. In life, many people come close to success but lose everything because they rush or give up too soon. Patience is not just about waiting, it's about taking the right actions at the right time. Success comes to those who remain calm and persistent until the very end. The 13th story, Mastering the Mind, the Root of Success. During the time when the Buddha was still in the world, he once delivered a sermon at the Jetavana Monastery in the city of Savatthi. A young monk named Tien Tam came to seek ordination. He was diligent and dedicated in his practice, but his mind often wandered, consumed by idle thoughts and worldly ambitions. One day, Tien Tam was assigned to sweep the meditation hall. As he worked, a fallen leaf landed on the tiled floor. Instead of simply picking it up, his mind began to drift. "This leaf is so beautiful. If only I could use it to decorate a painting. But first, I need to learn how to paint. To paint well, I'll need good paper and fine brushes. Perhaps I should return to lay life, open an art studio, and earn lots of money. With money, I can buy a house, get married, and have children. I'll name my child Min Chao, a name as precious as a jewel." Caught in his daydream, Tien Tam continued sweeping aimlessly, scattering dust and dirt everywhere. Suddenly, he swung the broom too hard, sending a cloud of dust over a venerable monk who was meditating nearby. The venerable monk opened his eyes gently and smiled. "Tien Tam, you've not only stirred up dust, but also lost hold of your own mind." Startled, Tien Tam knelt down and apologized. Embarrassed, he asked, "Venerable One, how can I control my mind? It keeps wandering beyond my control." The venerable monk smiled compassionately and replied, "Your mind is like a wild horse, running in all directions. To tame it, you must use the reins of determination and the focus of concentration to guide it back. Remember, whoever masters their own mind will break free from all the chains of delusion." Tien Tam listened intently and realized the lesson. From that day forward, he practiced patience and concentrated on mastering his thoughts, no longer letting frivolous ideas lead him astray. Over time, he found peace in meditation and made remarkable progress on his spiritual journey. In life, our minds are often swept away by idle thoughts, worries, and unnecessary ambitions. To achieve success and happiness, the most important task is to master our minds, much like holding the reins of a wild horse. When the mind is calm and focused, everything in life becomes clear, and you free yourself from the burdens and entanglements of the world. The 14th story, Good Thoughts, the Scale That Balances the Soul. Long ago, a young man yearned to live a virtuous life, but often found himself consumed by negative emotions. If someone insulted him or acted against his wishes, he would immediately lose his temper and spiral out of control. His anger not only harmed himself, but also drove people away from him. Though he realized his flaws, he couldn't change. In despair, he sought out a renowned monk at an ancient temple, hoping for guidance. The monk said nothing but handed the young man a balance scale along with black and white game pieces. The monk instructed, "Use this scale and find the answer to your problem." The young man took the scale and tried placing pieces on either side. When one side had more, the scale tipped in that direction. Only when he balanced the number of black and white pieces did the scale level out. Despite experimenting numerous times, he couldn't grasp the deeper meaning of the scale. Frustrated, he wandered into the forest behind the temple. There, he heard the roaring of a waterfall mixed with the chirping of birds. Although the sounds echoed throughout the forest, the atmosphere felt surprisingly peaceful and harmonious. The young man wondered, why does the contrast between stillness and liveliness create such a beautiful scene? The next day, while meditating in his room, he watched the sun rise in the east, casting brilliant light, and later saw the moon illuminate the night with its soft glow. During meals, he noticed how his left and right hands worked in perfect harmony, not competing, yet completing every movement seamlessly. Suddenly, the meaning of the scale dawned on him. He thought to himself, everything in nature maintains balance. The human soul is the same. When negative emotions like anger or resentment tip the scale, I must add good thoughts to restore equilibrium. He realized that good thoughts are the only weights capable of keeping the soul balanced. By cultivating kindness and positivity whenever negativity arose, he could maintain peace of mind and prevent emotions from overpowering him. Returning to his life with a steadfast and tranquil heart, the young man faced each challenge by replacing anger with compassion and transforming negative emotions into valuable lessons for growth. Life is a balance between good and evil, positivity and negativity. Only by maintaining this balance can we live a fulfilled and serene life. Remember, whenever you encounter negative emotions, add a little kindness to the scale to keep your soul balanced and your heart happy. The 15th story, a broad heart is better than a broad path, a kind heart is better than good fortune. Life is not always smooth sailing. Hardships, losses, and challenges are inevitable parts of our journey. What matters most is not what we face, but how we respond. The human heart is the deciding factor. An open and forgiving heart helps us overcome difficulties and live a meaningful life. The heart is the path. The heart is like a path. If you are calculative and petty, that path will become narrow and restrictive. On the other hand, if you live calmly and generously, the path will widen, leading you to greater opportunities. In life, the way you treat others reflects how they will treat you. Kindness and tolerance always yield good results. Those who let go of trivial grievances and forgive easily will find peace and serenity within their souls. A story of generosity. In a company, the boss was infamous for his strictness. A newly hired assistant was often criticized for minor mistakes. Everyone feared the boss, even nicknaming him the devil. One day, the assistant made a significant mistake that caused the company substantial losses. Knowing he couldn't escape the consequences, he wrote a resignation letter, detailing his error. To his surprise, the boss did not scold or fire him. Instead, he silently returned the letter and encouraged the assistant to try harder. Moreover, he assigned him a major project to give him a chance to make amends. Years later, the assistant became a trusted and capable leader in the company. Reflecting on the incident, the boss explained, "I'm strict about small mistakes because they are easy to overlook and can become bad habits. But with major mistakes, people are already aware of their errors and learn from them. I forgive because I understand that everyone has a family and burdens to carry. No one wants to make mistakes on purpose." Lessons from the story. Forgiving others is also a gift to yourself. When you throw mud at someone, your hands are the first to get dirty. But when you offer flowers, their fragrance makes you feel good first. Gentle and generous people may not always achieve the greatest success, but they are undoubtedly the most loved and respected. A broad path is nothing without a broad heart. A meaningful life does not depend on whether the road you travel is smooth or rough, but on how expansive your heart is. When your heart is open, all difficulties seem lighter. When your heart is calm, gossip and trivial matters no longer disturb you. Good fortune is nothing without a kind heart. Those with kind hearts know how to let go of small grievances, live with compassion, and understand others. Such a mindset brings them the best that life has to offer. A kind heart illuminates your destiny. A broad heart transforms narrow paths into boundless avenues. Thank you for watching this video. If you found it helpful or inspiring, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support is a powerful motivator to spread hope and positivity to more people. May you always be blessed and guided to overcome every challenge. See you in the next video.